Hi, this is Leighton. I'm the director of development for the American Documentary and Animation Film Festival, our upcoming festival. 15th anniversary is March 25th to 29th. Is coming very soon. And this festival made possible by amazing sponsors, and one of them is the Desert Water Agency. And Victoria Llort from the DWA is here with us. I always call your title Water Goddess, but can you tell me what your official title is?
Absolutely. Hey, Leighton. So I'm Victoria Llort, the Director of Public Affairs and Conservation, as well as the Public Information Officer for Desert Water Agency. So it is a mouthful. You are correct.
And you've been supporting us for 3 years. What people don't know is we have canned waters at the theater, and then for the filmmakers in their swag bags, we put some water bottles. And
Mhm.
if you don't get one of those water bottles, bring your water bottles because the DWA's also put in refill stations throughout the theater, so to keep you hydrated, and that's very important here in the desert. Victoria, we're gonna have a lot of filmmakers here from around the world and around the state, around the country. They're going to come to the desert and wonder about water in the desert. And, this is such a flourishing, thriving community. What should they know about water here in the desert?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess just a quick little background about Desert Water Agency. We were founded in 1961, and shortly thereafter, we started as a groundwater sustainability agency, actually, to bring water to the desert to make sure that this vast aquifer underneath us is sustainable, right?
Mhm.
And that we had enough water for future generations. Shortly thereafter, we started providing water service to the Palm Springs, the greater Palm Springs community.
Mhm.
And so it's really funny. What I think is like a fun fact to know is people come to the desert and they're like, oh, it's a desert, there's a water shortage, it's dry, it's arid. Um, yes, it's dry and arid. We're actually very unique in the sense of um, we're in a desert, sure, we're in a perpetual state of drought because it's always so hot, but underneath us, we have this massive groundwater aquifer. And that's very unique to us because we actually are not in a water shortage by any means. And so over the years, our regional partners, along with Desert Water Agency, have made sure that that aquifer remains sustainable, not in overdraft, so that we continue to have so much water in the Coachella Valley. I think Visit Greater Palm Springs is the Visitor Bureau. Their slogan is like a desert oasis or Palm Springs oasis. And I think that that makes a lot of sense when you think about how much water and how much water history that we have here in the Coachella Valley.
How do our water issues differ from the rest of the state?
Um, well, that's such a
How,
loaded question, Leighton. No, I'm kidding.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I just because when
No,
we
not at
start talking
all.
about it, I mean, I
Yeah,
just as a resident here, we have a
absolutely.
great water situation, and I think it's
We do.
fabulous, and I think you do a great job. And I was just kind of asking in context of that is that you guys do such a great job, and can you and not to throw anyone under the bus, but it is a great you guys provide a great service here.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a very unique situation in that what I just said,
Hmm.
we do have lots of water. We're not in overdraft. We are sustainably managed. However, sometimes the state does adopt various policies
Hmm.
that need to be applied statewide, regardless of what your water situation may be.
Hmm.
And so that's something I don't know if you've heard of making conservation as a California way of life, but that is something that all water agencies were given a water budget that
Hmm.
is formulaic and it is specific to each water agency. However, regardless of what your water situation is, you still need to meet that water budget objective. And so here
Hmm.
in Palm Springs, between now and 2040, we have to reduce quite significantly, actually, in terms of what our water usage and consumption is. And the greatest way that we can really target and try to do that is outdoor watering,
Hmm.
whether that's at your home or your a business community, an HOA. If believe it or not, but 70% of water usage at a house is actually outside. So you
Oh,
think, oh my gosh, I took a long shower that day, or oh, I washed my dishes by hand instead of putting them in the dishwasher. It's actually, you know, are you overwatering? Do you have a smart irrigation controller? Is it helping you kind of water efficiently based off of what the weather pattern is for that day? Things of that nature. So I would say we are statewide politics does impact the state regardless of what your water situation might be. And I know that that's frustrating for the community, but unfortunately, as a government agency ourselves, we have to abide by all state laws.
the one thing that I've kind of seen as a resident here is that more people are adopting desert landscape outdoors, and I think that's been.
Mm.
I think it's also, it's necessary, but it creates this great aesthetic for a lot of these homes. We have Modernism Week, and when you go through Modernism Week, I've seen a lot of desert landscape, and I just think, oh, that's a beautiful way of doing that. And
Mm.
can you talk about that and how that's kind of changing the landscape here in the valley?
Absolutely. So we've recently partnered with, I guess I'm grabbing a prop.
Okay, that's great.
We've recently partnered with, which you can't really maybe see it, it's probably backwards, but Friends of the Desert Mountains, which is a
Mm-hmm.
local nonprofit out here. They have a plant native guide,
Mm-hmm.
essentially that lists out all of the different native plants to the area that would thrive here in the Coachella Valley with probably very little or no water, right? Just the native plants that we see here. Um, to your point about like removing grass and going to desert landscaping, that is something that we are encouraging.
Mm-hmm.
Water, grass is a thirsty plant, I guess you could call it. Just
Yeah,
grass is thirsty.
yeah.
And it takes a lot of water and you have to overseed and all these different elements. Whereas these native plants are able to sustain and last year round.
Mm-hmm.
As mentioned, with very little water, or they could be spaced out within your yard in such a way that it's not your whole yard doesn't need continuous water spray or irrigation. And so we do have various rebate programs here at Desert Water Agency where we are encouraging our customers if they would like to remove their turf or their grass and replace that with native landscaping. We very much encourage you to do so. And it also just, it helps water consumption, but it also it's putting some of that native aspect right back into what the Coachella Valley used to be as well.
And I love the creativity of a lot of these residents and how they do it for their homes, and some of it just really pops, and so I
Yeah.
always really appreciate that.
Well, the Desert Horticultural Society, they also host an annual desert garden tour, which is sometime in March as well. And that's something, like you said, with Modernism Week as well. You can kind of like walk through these different residential gardens and just get all of these great ideas. And yeah, it's fun to see what people do. And you're like, oh, I could do that at my house. Who knew it could be so simple, right?
Hmm. Right, and
So.
save you some money.
Ex- Exactly. If you use less water, it's going to be a smaller water bill, right?
Right,
So,
exactly. So we're a film festival, and we do have a lot of different films about conservation around the world, different
mhm.
issues that they have, and it's always fascinating for me, at least, to see them and see how people what their issues are and how they deal with them. Just your thoughts. We have a lot of filmmakers coming out here to the festival, maybe looking for some ideas. Conservation is a big topic. What kind of topics would you recommend for filmmakers if they're looking for a topic or a way to come up with a new idea for their next film?
Sure. Um, oh boy.
We're gonna
Well,
make you a producer here in addition to Water Goddess.
uh, thank you, thank you. I will, take whatever kickbacks. No, I'm kidding. Um, you know, uh, I I think just water politics in general are so interesting. I mean, you've seen movies going like so far back. I can't remember the one with Jack Nicholson, but there is just
Oh,
so
Chinatown.
much yeah, Chinatown. There's so much in the world of water. And it's not just water agency versus water agency. Although the
Hmm.
amount of um the 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 amount of litigation that also happens between water agencies is a fascinating concept as well, right? As we're talking about water rights or replenishment, um, things of that nature. And it's not just at the local level. As I was talking about at the state level, California is one of the most regulated states when it comes to, regulating contaminants within the water. And when I say contaminants, it's really like naturally occurring things in our water. We have naturally occurring, like calcium and things of that nature. But California regulates it usually so much more than federal standards or World Health Organization standards. And I think that that's also kind of a fascinating aspect. Why are we so regulated compared to other states? Because then it makes you feel that, are you consuming unsafe water? When Nevada is fine or Arizona is fine, right? And we all have these different standards. Um, so I think that would probably be an aspect to kind of consider, which is also a statewide. I would think the other thing that might be of interest is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. So SIGMA. This was a state law that passed a few years ago because many of the groundwater basins across the state were facing overdraft, and as a result, subsidence. And subsidence is essentially when the water underneath is being consumed so fast or irresponsibly, or there's too much of it going out that the ground actually starts to fall. And so there are some radical images out from the Central Valley of California where there is like a post and it's like 19 something, the ground was here, 2000 something, the ground is here. And so I think maybe the impacts of Sigma, has that helped subsidence? Has that helped more sustainable groundwater management? As I mentioned here in the Coachella Valley with Desert Water Agency, we are very well sustainably managed. We're not in overdraft, and that's something that is of significant importance for our community. And as the water stewards, we want to make sure that there's water for generations here in the Coachella Valley, as there has been already, and how can we continue that? And not just for our consumption, right? It's a huge part of our economy. It's what draws a lot of people here as well. Water is quite integral and interwoven in so many different aspects of our lives.
Yeah, I think when you mentioned Chinatown, the one thing that made me think about not the darkness of that, but it's just water's so vital for any community and for any community to thrive. And we're certainly thriving here in the Coachella Valley, and that's because of agencies like you and how not only just when you manage the water properly, it allows you to grow and thrive responsibly and quite quite fast too.
And it allows your community to grow, right? Like we've seen the Coachella Valley build and grow in the last 20 to 30 years. And a lot of that also has to do with, well, do we have the water to meet the demand of a growing population? And will we continue to have that water, right? So it's not just, do we have it right now? Do we have it for 20, 30, 50 years in the future?
Well, Victoria, I think that's going to cover it. Is there something I missed?
I don't think so. You really got me thinking pretty critically there of which I hope that maybe there were some fun ideas that were thrown out. Water is certainly not boring and it changes all the time. I also do our government affairs work here at Desert Water Agency, which is probably why that whole regulatory legislative side is so appealing to me because it's changing all the time. So.
Oh, I know. It's funny you mentioned Chinatown because that's kind of that's kind of the darker part, but that's just a lot of people involved with it. It's very complicated, but very interesting and
Mhm. Well, and
overwhelming for me sometimes.
yes. And most recently, I think it's with Billy Bob Thornton Goliath, which is on
Oh,
Amazon Prime. They had a whole season there about water as well and water banking and stealing of water and so it's still very much like at the forefront of pop culture if you think about it too. And so I was so into that season. I was like, ooh, more water, please. Let's talk about this. It was just fun to see. So.
yeah. Well, with the climate changing, I mean, it is at the forefront of all of our minds too.
Mhm.
I believe so. It's been more at the forefront of my mind than past years, and I've lived in the desert my whole life, not just this one, but in Arizona.
Yeah. Well, we're
You
fortunate
know,
right now not to be in a drought, but we just came out of a drought 2 years ago, right? Right. I think at the end of 22 or 23. And that was one of the more significant droughts in the state of California since 2015, 2016. So yeah, Mother Nature is ever changing, and we need to also be ready to adapt, which is why conservation at all points is so important, not just in times of drought, because the way we handle water here in the Coachella Valley, just if I could here, Leighton, the more water we're able to put in our groundwater basin, uh, when there's no drought, the better, right? But
mhm.
the more water we're able to save also as a consumer, you at your house, etc., that keeps that water in that bank, so to say, right? So it's like a bank account. The more that you take out, you also have to put back in, and you have to be mindful, right? So that when you are in a time of drought or an emergency, you still have a good reserve in that bank, so to say, right? And not just thinking about, oh, I need to save money now because I'm in an emergency. You need to be saving that at all times, right? So that's why we stress conservation. And I'm sure our customers in our community might have conservation fatigue, and we ask them to please bear with us. But it's so important even outside of a drought, even though we have a very fortunate water situation. We want to make sure that if we are hit with a prolonged drought, that's still okay and our community will still thrive.
I want to ask you something further about that, the drought. You know, when we heard about that drought and stuff like that, I remember it was kind of like, oh boy, you know, there's going to be a lot of problems. And we've been able to pivot and get out from the drought to back
Mhm.
to normal. What is it with it? Can you talk about that period, how we've been able to pivot out of that to make the drought, that drought period, I should say, not too detrimental, and we were able to pivot out of it pretty quickly.
Sure.
I thought it was pretty impressive how quickly we got out of that drought situation.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it also has to do with how were we managing the basin before the drought. And so that's where the planning and the consistent planning really makes an impact, and the consistent conservation. But I would also say just Desert Water Agency is one of 29 state water project contractors. And what that means essentially is that the State Water Project is this large water conveyance system in the state, and it's how many areas, specifically also Southern California, gets its water. And the water source there is the snowpack from the Sierra Nevadas. And so in times of drought, when like the state's in a drought, for example, we're not getting that much rain, we're not getting that much snow. So therefore, the water that we would be getting to replenish our aquifer and our groundwater basin isn't coming in. So it's not just that it's hot, etc. We need to conserve. It's also like, oh, we're not putting any money in the bank right now.
Hmm.
So everyone really needs to conserve, because we want to be mindful of the levels to not create subsidence, to not overdraft the basin. And that's why when we are in wet years, as we call it, we're trying to replenish the aquifer as much as possible so that we are never in that kind of danger zone should there be a drought year. So the Coachella Valley is very unique in that sense because we have this great storage system underneath us. Other areas of the state were very much impacted by the drought a few years ago. If we think about the rest of Southern California, Metropolitan Water District, their main water sources, they are a wholesaler to the area, but their main water sources are the State Water Project and the Colorado River. And so when both of those are in a drought, which happened in 2022, that creates a lot of strain for the water that they are able to provide their retail customers, um, be, because they solely rely on imported water. They don't have a groundwater source, where we in the Coachella Valley do. And we use our imported water for replenishment, not for drinking, because we're drinking our groundwater. So that's one of the areas that also makes the desert very unique, is that if there is any sort of drought anywhere, we still have this massive bank underneath us that we need to be mindful of course. Um, but it could sustain us while we wait for a drought period to end. Not everyone in the state is so lucky. And that's why sometimes you hear that conditions are so dire, the state is in a state of emergency, but once again, what the state says, that impacts the whole state. So even if we may not be in such a state of an emergency, we all need to do our part.
Well, it's one of the great success stories. I mean, you guys do an outstanding job, and makes us very proud to live here in the desert. Um, yeah, when I was in Arizona, we had certain policies we had to follow because I don't think we had the kind of resources that we do here. So I'm very appreciative and grateful for everything that you guys do to make this living here such a living here such a paradise.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's certainly a Coachella Valley wide regional effort with our 5 other water agency partners. And also, just really want to say it's our pleasure to continue to be a sponsor of AmDocs for the now going on to the 3rd year. Having that community partnership and the relationships, I think, is so critical. And it's something that is key to our strategic plan here at Desert Water Agency, but to also make sure that there is a two-way dialogue going on at all times. And one of the best ways to do that is to have these community relationships.
Well, again, thank you very much, Victoria. Hopefully, we'll be able to see you come out to the festival. We have some fun films for you.
Absolutely.
Again, it's the American Documentary Animation Film Festival celebrating 15 years is March 25th to 29th at the Palm Springs Cultural Center. Bring your water bottles. We'll have some water for you. Thanks to DWA, our fantastic partners who have supported us and supported the community so well so we can all flourish. Victoria, thank you again very much for your time today.
It's our pleasure. Thank you, Leighton.